Welcome to OurSpace. Thank you for joining us today. We're really excited to have a youth session on leisure presented by Emily and Ashley. I'm Haruka, and I also have Louise and Madeline in the room, and we're the project managers for the sessions, and Madeline's part of the youth team. Just a few things to go over before we start the session. You're more than welcome to share questions and comments in the share comments and question here box. Only the facilitators and project managers will see the questions and comments, and we'll post them in the shared comments and questions box as they come in. Depending on the timing, the facilitators might take a few minutes to get to your questions, but they will get to them, so don't worry. And we'll also have time dedicated for questions and answers at the end of the session. If you're having any problems with the technology or can't hear facilitators, feel free to let us know. Also, just wanted to remind everyone that these sessions are meant to be for sharing information that might be helpful for you right now. If you find that you need help right now, there are information about who to call on the left-hand column, and it will be up throughout the session. You can also access crisis information on our website at ourspacehamilton.ca. Lastly, that's it. So we'll get started. I'll hand the mic over to Emily and Ashley.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us this afternoon. My name is Ashley, and I'm a recreation therapist at St. Joe's Healthcare in Hamilton in the Forensic Psychiatry Department.
My name is Emily, and I'm also a recreation therapist at St. Joe's in the Forensic Psychiatry Department. So I'm just going to start off what the role of a recreation therapist is. So recreation therapists use a model of practice to assess and care for one's overall well-being. We focus on the person rather than the diagnosis, and we use recreation and leisure to promote health and wellness through the domains of health. So we're going to start off with a quick intro. There we go. Where would you rather be? So this is a little icebreaker we have. So the question is, where would you rather be if money, time, and obligations were not a concern? So I'll start off. If I could be anywhere right now, I would probably be on a nice sunny beach, just relaxing and getting some vitamin D. What about you, Ashley?
I would probably be at my cottage with friends and family, playing with my dog in the lake.
Very good.
So we'll quickly go over what leisure is. Leisure activities are things you do outside of work, responsibilities, or obligation. These activities can be physical, social, emotional, spiritual, or intellectual, or a mix of all of these domains. Leisure is a personal choice, which will look different to everyone, but the common factor is there are activities that bring you joy and meaning and leave you feeling satisfied. We call this intrinsic motivation, and what motivates someone internally is as unique as the person themselves. What is considered leisure for me may not be considered leisure for someone else. Here are a few examples of leisure: exercising, reading a book, spending time with family, art, dancing, building. Some other ideas that aren't commonly recognized as leisure is volunteering, going to a skills class, or hands-on activities. Leisure, like we said, is personal and looks different for everyone. What are some of your favorite leisure activities?
I know some of my favorite leisure activities are typically physical in nature. I like to go outside, I like to go hiking, kayaking, getting some fresh air.
Looks like we have a few comments coming in.
Canoeing, that's also another good one. Sitting by the fire, yeah, perfect time for that now. It's summer, we finally have some nice weather. We can get outside and do more of those outdoor leisure activities.
Netflix.
Netflix.
So Netflix is definitely considered a leisure activity, and some people may not recognize it, but again, if it's something that brings you internal joy and satisfaction, it does fall under the realm of rec and leisure. So how do we know what our leisure activities are? A good way to determine some of your leisure activities can be looking at the benefits. Leisure activities may reduce loneliness and increase social behaviors and social networks. They provide the opportunity to lead balanced lives, achieve your full potential, and gain life satisfaction. Often, they will decrease symptoms of anxiety and depression and improve one's overall mood. What activities come to mind for you? I know personally hiking is a go-to leisure activity when I'm feeling overwhelmed. It gives me the chance to clear my head, it challenges me enough to feel satisfaction, and gives me the chance to get out and connect with others.
So now that we know a little bit about what leisure is and some potential benefits, we can start to talk about the barriers. So what stops us from participating in leisure? So a barrier can be defined as an object, idea, practice, structure, or system that prevents or discourages participation. So I'm going to go over some different barriers to leisure, and they can be different to everyone, just like the benefits. So some barriers to leisure could be attitude that leisure is not important, lack of planning skills, financial barriers, you're too tired, lack of finances, inability to manage stress, manage your emotions, or lack of leisure partners. So I know in talking about mental health, there can be different barriers as well to your leisure participation. So some mental health barriers could be low mood, lack of motivation, maybe fear of new situations or meeting new people. You could be worried, or there's potential side effects to the medication that you may be taking. So now that we've discussed some barriers, we do have a poll, and the question is, what gets in the way of your leisure activities? So A, lack of time. I'm too busy with responsibilities to enjoy leisure time. Another thing, if you're going to school all day, you may not have time to do the things you want, or if you come home, you have to do chores. So a lack of time is definitely a big barrier. Another one is lack of resources. I don't know what to do in the community. I usually just stay home. So it is important to find resources out in the community, and we will touch upon that later of some different resources that you can access. C, your social network. I feel like I have no one to do these things with. Leisure definitely does help you gain social networks depending on what kind of activities you're participating in. Usually if you're doing sports, that encourages a lot of social communication, and you help build friendships that way. And the final one is D, financial. There are things I want to do, but I cannot afford to do so. So that's obviously a big barrier, especially you're youth. You may not have a job, no income, so it's hard to do things you want to do. Now looking at our poll, it seems to be financial barriers it was the most commonly answered poll question. So like I mentioned, at the end we will have resources available for recreation and leisure activities you can do in the community, and we'll touch on that in a bit.
So I'd like to introduce the happiness pie, which is a theory in positive psychology that I love to use when talking about the importance of leisure. This formula was developed by a psychologist named Sonia to evaluate where happiness stems from. Although this formula in general may not apply perfectly to everyone, it is important to note how her research broke down happiness. The pie shows that genetically 50% of our happiness is predetermined and beyond our control. 10% is determined by our current life circumstances. For example, financial, as we noted, was a barrier prior. But that leaves 40% of our happiness as a direct result from our intentional activity. Intentional activity are things you're choosing to do on a daily basis. So I want you to reflect. Are you choosing meaningful activities that cause joy and satisfaction? Or are you choosing activities that leave you feeling lonely, bored, or stressed out? It's important to reflect on how we choose to spend our most valuable commodity, our time. We encourage you to plan time in your day to do things that bring you joy and satisfaction, to control that 40% of the happiness that we see in the happiness pie.
So leisure and mental health. So when you're experiencing mental health concerns, it may be difficult to participate or engage in activities that you once loved. So here are a few just little tips to help you out. So activity planning. Scheduling leisure activities into your week and keeping this appointment with yourself. It's really important to plan your time and especially to use your time wisely as the things you enjoy doing. Imagine you couldn't do the things you like to do on a daily basis. Your life would be it wouldn't have as much meaning. So it is important to schedule this time. Another quick tip is the 5-minute rule. So if you're feeling unmotivated, you can engage your activities or plans for 5 minutes at a time. If after 5 minutes you want to stop, if you would like to stop, then you can. But most people, once they start with the activity, they usually tend to finish it. So I know exercise is a big one. Exercise is proven to be the most helpful things when dealing with your mental health. It can help improve your mood. You can go out for a run, a walk, join sports leagues. That's definitely another one. But the most important thing to remember is that these activities need to be meaningful to you. So you don't want to just be doing things for the sake of doing things. So you need to find things that you're passionate about. So for example, if all of your friends are outside maybe playing basketball and that doesn't appeal to you, then maybe that's not a leisure activity for you. Certainly you can go for other aspects such as communication, hanging out with your friends, that's great, but you need to find things that provide meaning in your everyday life. So like I mentioned before, we do have some community resources available for you in the City of Hamilton. So the first one is the City of Hamilton recreation programs. There are fitness classes, swimming, cooking classes. You can go to the open gym. There is also the Living Rock. We have provided these websites on our slides, so feel free to look at that. They have socials, sports, spiritual events, and there's also a Trails app. So if you are someone like Ashley or myself who does enjoy hiking, then definitely check those out. I know also Good Life Fitness does offer free fitness memberships for the summer for youths aged 12 to 17. So if that's something you're interested or passionate about, then definitely you can sign up to get your free gym membership. So it's important that you do find these community resources because there are a lot of different things that you can do in the city that you may not know of.
I don't think I can see.
So that concludes our presentation. So we have a few questions on screen here that we will be answering. Do you want to go first one?
Sure. So it looks like the first question here, sorry, I'm just reading it. What if the major barriers that stop me from taking part in leisure activities are out of my control? I don't have many free leisure options that I genuinely enjoy, but I don't have enough money to do the things I genuinely want to do. Okay, so that's definitely a great question, and I would love to know a little bit more about what those things are that you want to do. I would recommend checking out the more free recreation site that we have listed on the last slide. So when you click on My Free Hamilton, it is categorized by the different domains of health. So social, physical, emotional, spiritual, and intellectual. Those have quite a few resources under each domain that are free in our community. I think a lot of free resources go unused because they aren't as easily accessible. Sorry, we're losing the question here.
I think also with the generation now, they do have everything on social media. You can go Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. They definitely, the City of Hamilton does definitely show all the recreation programs they have, all the free things to do. So that's another option to keep open.
I would also take advantage of free passes. Many recreation opportunities offer free trials and then different subsidized programming or things at a lower cost depending on student discounts and whatnot. It never hurts to ask when you are accessing these recreation resources, and just because you think something's out of your budget, it might not necessarily be.
All right, so we'll move on to the next question, so I'll read it out loud. It says, because of my mental health, I feel like I've lost my sense of what's meaningful to me. How do I know what to do for leisure if I don't know what's important to me?
That's a good one.
Great question. So as a youth, you are changing. Your interests definitely do change as you age. So I think it's important to just take time for self-reflection. If it's hard for you to find meaning in what you're doing, maybe you need to change it up. So, for example, maybe when you were younger, you enjoyed going around riding your bike, and now you don't find the same meaning in that. So maybe it's finding trails to ride your bike on, or doing different things like that.
I think rec and leisure too is a lot of trial and error. There is no one way and there's no best fit for anyone. I highly encourage you to try something new. There's so many forms of recreation out there, and you just have to try it. I would focus on the benefits that we talked about when you're doing these activities. Are you experiencing a sense of joy and satisfaction? Is your mood overall increasing? If you're not seeing these benefits, maybe that's not the right activity for you, and try something else.
Yeah, for sure. I think Ashley answered that pretty well. So we'll move on to our next question. Is it better to do recreation with someone or alone? It always depends on what brings meaning to you, like we said. So some people may find meaning in reading a book or watching Netflix. That can be done alone. Some people may get more satisfaction out of the social aspect of leisure. So it's always dependent on you. I personally like to do both. I like to find a balance in both. I like to spend my time reading or watching Netflix, and then I also like to play sports where I'm socializing with other people. So it's definitely dependent on this person.
And again, leisure isn't black and white. As recreation therapists, we like to focus on all domains of health. We believe that when you're thriving in all domains, so social, physical, etc., that's when you're reaching your highest peak of well-being. So there are times or days you may need to focus on independent recreation, where you take that alone time and you do those alone activities. But I think it's also important, like Emily said, to balance that and include those social activities, because your social domain of health is just as important, and increasing those social networks so you're not self-isolating.
Mm-hmm.
So does leisure work on the brain even if you don't love doing it? Like running? Good question.
Does anyone actually like running? No, I'm kidding.
That's a good question. So I would say that I should have clarified. When you try recreation or leisure activities such as running, you may not love it the first time, and definitely don't give up. I think that the benefits may increase over time. If you're doing running or physical activity for other reasons other than recreation, such as improving your health, losing weight, things like that, then it can definitely turn into a recreation activity if you begin to experience those benefits.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So the next question, is there one kind of recreation that's best to focus on, like social or physical? Like Ashley had already mentioned, it's important to keep all the domains of health in mind when doing your recreation and leisure activities. Some people may not enjoy the social aspects as much, and that's totally fine. It's up to you. I think it's important to be aware that there are different kinds, and also to be aware of what your favorites are. Like we mentioned, this is supposed to be fun. Leisure is what you do for fun. So if it's not fun for you, that's fine. You don't need to do it. You don't need to focus on, for example, maybe your spiritual health if it's not rewarding for you.
So next question. I feel bad doing something I enjoy when I'm in school because I feel like I should be doing schoolwork. How do I overcome my barriers in school? I love this question. I think this is so important, and it also affects people who are in work. I think in the society we live in today, we put a lot of focus on our accomplishments and our work ethic, and we really commit to school and work and homework and getting things done around the house. And I think that we often forget that this is our life. We only get it once, and we need to make time to do things that we genuinely enjoy. We need to set those appointments with ourselves to bring recreation and leisure into our life. And again, you can't just be doing fun things all day, but you need to find that balance to allow recreation into your world daily, to get that sense of enjoyment and well-being so you don't burn out when you're doing things like school and work.
Exactly. Like we'd mentioned, take doing the 5-minute rule or your activity planning. So if you know you have a really busy day, if you only get 5 minutes to yourself, make sure you're spending it the way you want to be spending it.
Mm-hmm.
So you have 5 minutes at the end of the day before school, or sorry, after school before you have to go to work. If you want to sit, take 5 minutes, read your book, just at least to make sure you are getting those leisure benefits.
What if the things I think are fun, other people think are bad things? How far can I go before my choices for leisure are bad or wrong? Good question.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we need to go back to the idea that recreation and leisure is to increase your overall well-being. So to simplify that, the choices you make for rec and leisure should be, at the end of the day, good for you and create that benefit to your overall health. There are definitely activities out there that would affect your health negatively and your mental health negatively. I think that if some relationships are telling you that your leisure choices are bad or wrong, that you need to really reflect on what choices you're making.
Yeah, definitely. It's always important to put yourself first. Although you may be doing these things and you feel great about it, if it's not helping your health, physical or mental, then it maybe shouldn't be doing something or you shouldn't be doing that thing. But overall, it's just important to remember that leisure is the fun things you do in your life. The things you find meaning in, they bring you joy, you're happy when you're doing it.